except for ran to the restroom. Okay, well, I will hold my tongue. Matter, and that is stipulation number 65. Both the parties have reached their 65th stipulation as to testimony of Michael Ogden, and the court will accept that stipulation. Thank you. Thank you. Did you file a copy with that also?
Yes.
They did? This is my copy. Okay. Great. Thanks. Right, our jurors have all returned to the courtroom, and Mr. Durst is present. Mr. Lewis at his side. Other counsel are in the back. And Mr. Lewin, Mr. Henderson, present at counsel table, the others in the jury box for the people. You may call your next witness, Mr. Lewin.
Lev Ginsburg, Your Honor.
Forward.
Stand. Raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please be seated. For the record, please state and spell your first and last name.
Lev, L-E-V, Ginsburg, G-I-N-S-B-U-R-G.
Thank you.
I think I need to hand over my microphone. That one's not very good. I'll pass this over to you.
All right. How's this?
Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Ginsburg, what do you do for a living?
I'm a lawyer.
And how long have you been a lawyer?
18 years.
You know what, I think I'm having trouble hearing. I'm guessing the jury is too.
Speak right into that microphone, please.
18 years?
I don't know if that helped.
Are we out of batteries on that thing?
Oh, there's a power button.
Yeah, we've got to press that power button until it lights up.
Now it's good.
Red light, you're good.
18 years?
Okay,
There we
good
go.
enough.
And can you tell me what kind of education do you have?
Well, I went to college at UCLA, and I went to law school at UCLA.
And when you say you've been a lawyer for 18 years, do you have a special area of expertise?
Yes, I practice entertainment law.
You know, when I'm still having, can the jurors hear them?
This light went off after I pressed this.
Must be a battery issue.
Batteries. Can you pass me the mic? I've got the batteries.
You didn't bring your own batteries, Mr. Ginsburg?
Yeah, is there another microphone that I tested yesterday? It's the,
There's a bunch of microphones
the
here.
nipple color? Right. Can you
that
speak
one's-
to that one and let's test it?
Okay, that one's pretty good. So when you tip that up, tip it up and speak right into it.
Is this better?
There we go.
Fix that. That's great.
I'm an entertainment lawyer.
And as an entertainment lawyer, what specifically do you do?
I represent actors and writers and directors.
And
Some producers.
when I say the name Lynda Obst, is that a name you recognize?
It is.
And how do you recognize that name?
She's a client.
And was she a client of yours in 2015?
Yes.
Is she still currently a client?
Yes.
And can you tell me, with respect to your discussions and testimony, did she previously waive her attorney-client privilege to allow you to testify?
Yes, on a limited basis for the scope of today's matter.
So I want to ask you, were you contacted by Lynda Obst sometime around the airing of the Jinx miniseries in February or March of 2015?
Yes.
And can you tell me, as you sit here right now, do you remember the exact date?
No.
Can you tell me what happened? What was the circumstances of your contact by Ms. Obst?
Well, she called and said that, and, you know, not a direct quote, but it was something to the effect of, you know, she had information that she felt was germane, relevant to the unsolved case discussed in that show.
And did she mention anything specifically about what that information was?
Yes.
And what did she tell you specifically that information was?
Again, I don't remember it word for word, but the substance of it was her recollection that her friend, Susan Berman, had placed a phone call in which she impersonated Kathy Durst to something called Albert Einstein, educational facility of some kind or something like that.
And I just want to clarify, did Lynda Obst tell you that that had happened, or did Lynda Obst tell you that Susan Berman told her that had happened?
The latter.
And when she told you this information, did she indicate to you if you were the first person that she had revealed this information to?
That I don't remember.
What, if anything, was your response when she told you this?
Right, so, you know, I said something to the effect of, look, you should report this to the authorities, get in touch with whoever it is that, you know, handles unsolved cases and, you know, tell your story.
And what was Ms. Obst's response, if you can remember, to your instructions?
Well, she said something like, you know, I was afraid you were going to say that, and she didn't like it.
And in terms of your relationship with Ms. Obst, is Ms. Obst a strong-minded woman or someone who is more meek?
Oh, she's got a real point of view.
And so you recommended that she do this. Are you aware of whether or not she immediately followed through with your request?
Yeah, so she definitely did not immediately follow through with it. And then at some point we had some conversation thereafter in which she told me that she spoke with a friend of hers who I believe was, and again, she may have spoken with this person roughly around the same time, I don't know, but this friend of hers was or is a district attorney or a lawyer for the city or county on some basis, and I'm not entirely sure, and I don't recall his name, but she was social friends with him, and she relayed, I guess more or less what she relayed to me, and said that he had the same reaction that I had. Did
Lynda Obst tell you if she had spoken to Andrew Jarecki prior to speaking to you?
I don't recall. No, I don't recall either way.
Can you tell
me? She had spoken with him because she had been part of that show. So I mean, she
right. Poor question on my part. Did she indicate to you, or do you remember if she told you that she had spoken to Mr. Jarecki regarding this information that she had about Albert Einstein?
That I don't remember.
Can I ask you, if I were to have you kind of give your opinion based on your contacts with Ms. Obst as to whether she was in any way enthusiastic to come forward with the information she had to law enforcement?
No, she was not enthusiastic.
And can you explain what leads you to give that opinion?
Well, she's not shy, and so she said as much. And, you know, my original reaction was something like, look, you should, I don't really feel like I have much of a choice here. Like, you have to come forward and try to assist. I mean, there's the whole lawyer thing of, we're taught in law school about we're officers of the court. So I was like, Lynda, what do you want me to tell you? Like, I can't, I'm supposed to tell you to talk to the authorities and like kind of do your thing. And she was not thrilled about that. And she indicated that she didn't love that advice.
And when you say not thrilled, would that be an understatement?
Yeah, I mean, she was sort of scared to get involved, and she was she thought it would be like a time commitment and, attract unwanted attention, and she just seemed nervous about it and not happy about it.
Did she indicate to you any other reasons other than professionally why she did not want to become involved?
Yes.
What did she tell you?
Well, she said that, she was sort of scared of the defendant.
And you just said sort of. Did she indicate sort of scared, or did she indicate that she was afraid of the defendant?
It's hard to say, I don't remember word for word, but, Lynda's not prone to fear. That's not in her DNA, but the fact that she was even talking about that as a thing, indicated that she was feeling that way to me.
As you sit here, Mr. Ginsburg, do you have any desire to be involved in this case?
No.
Have you repeatedly expressed your desire to, if possible, not have to testify in this case?
Well, I think what I asked you was if I could do it via affidavit so I didn't have to drive.
And has that been your desire since you were first told that you might have to testify?
Yes.
And as you sit here today, is that still your desire?
Yes.
And I want to ask you something. In terms of your experience with Lynda Obst, how long have you known her?
10 years? 12, something like that?
And in your experience, would you describe her as an honest and credible person?
Yes. She was a journalist too, and I think that's a big part of how she approaches her work.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Lewis, you may cross-examine the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Ginsburg.
Morning.
I just have a couple of questions. I want to clarify just a few points. First, you just discussed with Mr. Lewin, you've been close with Ms. Obst for quite a few years, correct?
Yeah.
Well before the miniseries The Jinx in 2015.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you've described Ms. Obst's apprehension about getting involved. Let me ask you this. Did she consult you before she agreed to do the interviews for the TV show?
I don't remember that.
So that doesn't stand out in your mind?
No.
Prior to her doing the interview with the TV show, and the TV show appearing on network television, it is true she had never before mentioned to you anything about this Susan Berman statement. Is that true?
She had never mentioned anything to me about the Susan Berman statement.
Prior to the Jinx.
That's true.
Thank you, Mr. Ginsburg. I pass the witness, Your Honor.
No further questions, Your Honor.
And this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
Excused, thank you.
May I get our next witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ryan Erlich.
Please take a stand.
All right.
Please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please be seated. For the record, please state and spell your first and last name.
My name is Ryan Erlich, R-Y-A-N-E-R-L-I-C-H.
Thank you.
May proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Erlich. What do you do for a living?
I'm a Deputy District Attorney for the County of Los Angeles.
And how long have you been so employed?
Just over 9 years.
And I'm going to assume that as a Deputy District Attorney, you are also a lawyer?
That is true.
Can you tell me what your education history is?
I attended law school for 3 years here in Los Angeles. Before that, I attended 4 years of college.
And where did you go to college and law school?
Went to Georgetown University for college and UCLA for law school.
And can you tell me, in terms of your professional career, has it been spent entirely in the district attorney's office?
Before I became a DA, I worked as a civil litigator for about 9 months, and then left law altogether, and then came back to it, and have been working at the DA's office since May of 2012.
And you work in the same office as myself, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Miata, Mr. Milius, and Mr. Balian, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Approximately how many deputy district attorneys are there in the office?
I think there are somewhere between 800 and 1,000.
And is it fair to say that the 5 of us, including yourself, 6 of us, excuse me, are all deputy district attorneys?
That is correct.
And can you tell me, were you acquainted with any of the 5 of us prior to your involvement in this case?
No.
And in terms of specifically your involvement, your knowledge of or interaction with me, had you and I ever had any involvement prior to this case?
No.
All right, I want to ask you, when I say the name Lynda Obst, is that a name that you're familiar with?
It is.
And can you explain how you recognize that name?
I've known Lynda for probably 9 to 10 years almost. She's a friend of mine. I have breakfast with her almost every Saturday morning. My wife owns a restaurant, and that's where I met her.
Okay, I want to back up.
Okay.
So let's start with the wife. So your wife, you said, owns a restaurant. Which restaurant is that?
It's called Squirrel, S-Q-I-R-L. It's in Silver Lake. In
Which
Los
is not how you spell squirrel, but that's a...
That's right. That's why I spelled it.
And in terms of your relationship with Lynda Obst, did it develop in any way related to your duties as a deputy district attorney?
No.
And you indicate that you have breakfast every weekend with her. Can you describe a little bit about how that came about?
Sure. She was one of the first regular customers at the restaurant when we opened in 2012. I was there most mornings because I was dating my wife at the time. And we struck up conversations and friendship, and it just sort of became a standing breakfast date every Saturday morning, and now refer to it as the Breakfast Club.
And is it fair to say that in those 9 years, both your wife and Squirrel have become somewhat noted and become successful?
I think that's true.
And does Lynda Obst still go to Squirrel?
She does.
So I want to ask you about a period in the middle of February of 2015. And I want to ask you, at that time, did Lynda Obst approach you with an issue?
She did.
And can you please tell me what that issue was and what happened?
She asked me at about that time, she mentioned that she had information about a crime that had been committed or something related to a crime. She asked me if she had that information, what she thought I should do with it, and I told her that it was important for her to report it to whatever law enforcement agency was responsible for the area in which the crime had occurred or which it was related, and then she relayed to me what information it was that she had.
And can you please indicate what specifically did she say to you?
She told me that she had a friend in the past named Susan Berman, and that Susan Berman had told her and she knew that Susan Berman knew Robert Durst. She told me that Susan Berman had told her that at some point, shortly following the disappearance of Mr. Durst's first wife, that Mr. Durst had asked Susan Berman to call first wife's medical school, pose as the wife, and tell them that she would not be attending classes because she was sick.
Let me stop you. When Lynda Obst was telling you this, was she saying this was conduct that she had observed firsthand, or was she saying that Susan Berman had related to her this information?
It was the second, that Susan had told her about that.
And at that time, when Lynda Obst came forward to you, did you know anything about a current investigation by the Los Angeles Police Department Robbery Homicide Division or our office?
No.
And at that time, was the crime that she was relating to you, did it appear to have been committed within the jurisdiction of Los Angeles?
No.
And what, if anything, did you say to Lynda Obst at that time?
Well, I told her she should report it to the law enforcement agency that was responsible for the jurisdiction in which the crime occurred. She told me that the crime was somewhere on the East Coast. She may have mentioned a particular county. I don't remember which county it was she mentioned, and we talked about her getting in touch with either the police agency or the DA's office there.
With respect to the specific information that she gave you, do you recall if Lynda Obst mentioned Albert Einstein?
I don't recall whether she mentioned that particular school or if it was just the generalized medical school.
Do you recall what Lynda Obst's response was when you gave her that recommendation?
She sort of brushed it off. She seemed hesitant to do that.
At the time that you spoke to her, did she indicate whether or not you were the first person she had confided in about this?
I don't remember if she did.
Do you know if she told you whether or not she'd already spoken to Andrew Jarecki?
I think at some point in the time around that conversation that she may have mentioned that, because at that point she had mentioned that there was a documentary that had either just recently come out or was about to come out that involved that case.
Did you learn subsequent to that conversation with Lynda Obst that there was an active investigation involving Susan Berman's death by LAP Robbery Homicide Division and by our office?
I did.
And how did you learn about that reinvestigation?
Well, I didn't learn about it until there was an arrest, I believe.
And when you learned about it at that point in time, did you end up having a subsequent conversation with Lynda Obst?
Actually, I had a conversation between the time she disclosed the information and the time I learned there was an arrest in the case. I had not watched the documentary at the time she made the initial disclosure. I started watching it afterwards. The documentary had aired, but I hadn't had an interest or had watched it. As the documentary went on, it became clear that there was possibility that there was a Los Angeles crime tie, and based on the information that there could be a Los Angeles Police Department investigation, and if there was going to be a prosecution, that our office would handle it. And so when I put that all together, I told Lynda that I didn't want to talk about the facts of the case anymore, and I encouraged her to contact local law enforcement to report what she had told me in relation to that crime.
And what was her response when you told her that?
It was similar to her response the first time I told her to contact law enforcement. She heard it. She didn't seem like that was something she was enthusiastic about doing, and I got the sense that she wanted me to tell her something else because she was hesitant to do that.
If I were to ask you just in general, having known Lynda Obst for this period of time, would you describe Lynda as somebody who has strong opinions or somebody who is easily directed?
I would say she has strong opinions.
And were those strong opinions in evidence during this issue that you had with her?
Yes.
At some point in time, you indicated that you learned that Mr. Durst had been arrested. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And at that time, did you become aware specifically that I was involved in the case?
Yes,
And did you have a further conversation with Ms. Obst?
I did. Before the arrest occurred, and as I sort of saw that this potentially could be related to a case that occurred sometime before, I mentioned your name specifically because you were the only person in our office that I knew handled what are usually referred to as cold cases. And I thought this qualified potentially as one.
And when you say that you mentioned my name, did you direct her again to contact me?
Yes,
And what was her response at that time?
same response, same sort of hesitancy, the same sort of feeling that this wasn't exactly the response she wanted to hear from me.
At any point during your discussions with Ms. Obst, did she indicate to you that she wanted to speak with her personal attorney, Mr. Ginsburg?
She did.
Now, I want to ask you specifically a little bit about Lynda Obst. Did she at all relate to you any desire to be involved in this case or this prosecution?
She did not. In fact, I would say that she had the opposite feeling.
And if I were to ask you, based on your knowledge of Ms. Obst and your relationship with her, is she somebody that appears to be looking for her 15 minutes of fame with respect to this case?
No.
And can you please explain why you say that?
I think, well, a couple reasons. Number one, in the months and years since the arrest, when knowing that she was possibly going to have to testify, it caused her a great amount of anxiety. And so she was always reticent to be involved. The second is that knowing Lynda and having been friends with her and observed her with other people, she doesn't really need this. She is a prominent producer and has been for a very long time, and she's not someone who, in my opinion, based on my friendship with her, is really looking for any additional attention.
Mr. Erlich, the restaurant that your wife operates is kind of to some degree, a delicious but trendy Hollywood-type restaurant with a lot of entertainment people. Is that correct?
There are some that come through. I would say it is a popular and trendy restaurant.
And if I were to ask you in terms of the level of entertainment people that come in there, I assume they range from, struggling actors and actresses to, minor producers, etc. Where would you put kind of Ms. Obst on that kind of hierarchy?
I don't work in the business, but the sense that I get from people who do, and the way I've seen people who come up to her, if they come up to her, is that she has quite a good, strong reputation as a producer and is pretty high up in the hierarchy.
Have you spoken to Ms. Obst about the case since you were interviewed by investigators and myself in 2015?
I've spoken to her about the prospect of testifying in the case, but not about specifics related to the case and facts of the case.
And was that intentional?
Yes.
And can you explain why?
It's the same reason that I told her I didn't want to talk about the facts of the case when I found out there might be an LA connection. One of the things that's sort of drilled into us in our training as DAs is that if there is information about an active case or investigation that our office is handling, that if one of us knows it, it's assumed that all of us knows it. And I would be under a duty to communicate that to whoever was handling the case and to my higher-ups. I didn't want to do that because I wanted to ensure that any communication that she had about the facts of the case and her involvement in the case went through the DAs who were assigned to handle the case. That's how I would want it handled if I was a handling DA. And so to the extent we did discuss the case, and I feel like we avoided it, it was just to tell her to be honest if she was called to testify, and to assure that once she had done what it was she was called to do and testify truthfully, that she could put the case behind her, which is the sense that I had from the beginning of what she wanted to do.
Mr. Erlich, since 2015, is it fair to say that you now know certain members of the Durst prosecution team, including myself?
That's true.
And is it fair to say that you and I have had conversations about different cases or different personnel issues separate and apart from your involvement in this case?
Yes.
And I want to ask you, other than being asked about your availability to testify and about logistical issues, have you had any discussion with any member of the Durst prosecution team or any investigators who have worked on this case since your 2015 interview, other than last week when myself and Detective Thornton called you to review the questions we'd be asking you?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor. Oh, I'm sorry, one more. Have you had any involvement in the actual prosecution of this case?
I have not.
Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, you may cross-examine.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
I wouldn't say bribed, but I was strongly urged to ask you a bunch of questions about Mr. Lewin now that we have a deputy district attorney under oath, but we don't have enough time for that.
Fire away, Chip.
Just to clarify, you are now aware as you sit here today, sir, that Ms. Obst, in fact, met and provided an extensive interview with the makers of the TV show The Jinx.
Yes.
And you've now learned, or subsequent to your discussions with her, you learned that she did all that before she ever consulted you for advice.
Yes.
She did not express to you, relative to doing The Jinx, any apprehension about that, did she?
Not in, I think, in the actual conversation.
Fair enough. Now, you would agree with me, you've gotten to know Miss Obst as a friend in this fashion from your breakfast club, et cetera.
Yes, sir.
And you've come to know of her stature in the entertainment business, as you've testified.
Yes, sir.
Is it fair to say, having gotten to know her, that you would certainly consider her, like the rest of us, certainly fallible?
Of course.
And to make clear, she did not disclose any of this information you've shared with us today prior to The Jinx, correct?
Not to me.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Very briefly, Mr. Erlich, do you consider Lynda Obst to be a person of integrity?
I do.
Do you consider her to be an honest person?
I do.
Thank you. No further questions.
Go.
No, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused?
No objection, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
You're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm reading from this, and Mr. Henderson is going to present the next witness.
Next up, Your Honor, I'd like to mark as People's 111.
111?
It's a DVD with the video of Paul Kaufman. Testimony is 1 hour and 37 minutes. I'd like to mark the transcript as 111A.
Thank you.
Are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Does the court need one?
I have mine. Thank you.
This court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I did.
Please be seated. Move your chair closer to the mic. Please.
Okay.
That's fine, thank you. Please state and spell your first and last name.
Paul Kaufman, P-A-U-L-K-A-U-F-M-A-N.
Thank you.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Kaufman. How old are you?
Do I have to answer that? Approximately 74 as of yesterday, Saturday.
You're obligated to tell the truth, sir.
And how are you feeling today?
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Where do you currently live? You don't have to give me an address, but what general city?
I live in West LA, Century City,
For how long have you lived there?
7-8 years.
Okay. And are you currently employed?
I'm basically retired, but I still consult with people at home on the phone, real estate people, etc.
Okay. So your current, I guess, consultation, what does that entail? What type of work?
Well, it's advisory. I speak with real estate professionals on matters of sales, management, time management, organizational issues. But I basically am
What did you retire from? What was your previous occupation?
Well, I was involved in the entertainment industry, produced some shows, and was also involved as an investment advisor and had some businesses, etc. A lot of different things.
What, any shows, what shows have you produced? What are some of the shows?
Well, I was involved with the show on A&E, this goes back some time now, on the history of Las Vegas. Most recently, I produced a show on the love letters of Napoleon and Josephine here in Santa Monica, it was a year and a half ago. So, done things of that nature from time to time.
Okay. And when did your work in production begin, approximately?
Well, I graduated from Carnegie Mellon in the 60s, and from then on, been involved with it all my life, really.
Okay. Were you involved in it in the 1980s?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any children?
I have two,
What are their names?
Sarah and Lynda.
Okay. What is Sarah's date of birth?
Let's see, March 27th, 74.
And Noah?
April the 3rd, 76.
Okay. Are you married?
Not now.
Okay. Were you previously married?
Oh, yeah.
What years were you married?
Well, let's see, I was married to the mother of my children, Judy. I think we got married in the early 70s and through the 70s.
Okay. Were you married any other time?
I was married once before, right out of college, but that was a brief marriage. Yes.
Okay. Where does Bella currently live?
She lives in Oregon.
And Sarah?
He's here in LA.
Are you in contact with them?
Yes, my daughter, quite a bit, just, but my son, not for the last year or two. We had an argument, actually in relationship to this whole affair, and so we haven't spoken in a while.
In relation to what whole affair?
Well, the series that was done on this, on the Durst, the television series for HBO. That was what the discussion was about.
Did you watch the Jinx?
No, I have not watched it.
And you said you had an argument with Sarah about the Jinx?
Well, he wanted me to come in and do an interview with the producers, and I didn't want to do it.
Okay. Do you know a woman named Susan Berman?
Oh, yes. That's why I'm here.
What's your understanding of why you're here?
Well, to testify as to the conversation that I had with her in regard to this matter.
Okay. Do you recognize Susan in People's 11?
Oh, yes.
Can't see you.
If you say so.
Can you please point to which person this photo is?
Well, she's the woman in the middle.
Okay, thank you. When did you meet Susan?
Well, we knew each other actually from junior high school, grade school actually, but then we didn't see each other for many years, and really in this era, we were reintroduced to each other in the 80s.
Okay. You said you knew each other in grade school. Was that Chadwick?
Indeed it was.
Okay. And were you friends with her when you were in grade school?
No, not
Okay. You attended the same grade school?
really.
And then at some later point, you connected with her?
We connected
When was that?
in the 80s.
Early, mid, late?
Mid-80s.
And after you reconnected with her in the mid-80s, did you develop a relationship with her?
Well, yes, we did. I was reintroduced by a mutual friend, and we got involved with writing scripts and, that area of the industry. Since she was a writer, I was also writing at that time. And that's what brought us together. We had a lot of mutuality, with friends' mutual background. We were both living in Brentwood at the time, a few blocks away from each other. And so, and I was very taken with her just as a talent and as a wit and as a lovely, charming person that she was. And then it became, it really became something.
Okay, and did you develop a romantic
Yes,
relationship?
we did.
Yes?
Yes.
What year was it, would you estimate, that you began a romantic relationship?
I'd say 86, 87, right in there.
How close did you become?
Well, quite close, we actually ended up living together.
When you say you ended up living together, where did you live?
Well, at the time, I ended up, long story, but anyway, I ended up, we lived together at her home, in her home actually, for a couple of years.
Where was that?
I was in Redwood, as I said, she was only a few blocks away from me.
Did, you remember what street it was on?
Coyne.
Coyne, C-O-Y-N-E?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you say you lived with her at that home, was it just you, or?
No, with the children, all of us, we lived as a family.
Okay. And who was making the payments on that home when you lived there?
I was pretty much
You were?
at that time.
Okay. Was Susan contributing at all?
Well, yes, I mean, this goes back quite a ways. You're asking me all this for the first time, I'm just kind of remembering. She did have some money that she was contributing.
Okay. What was Susan's financial situation when you met her?
Well, she was all right. I mean, she had had some success in New York, and of course she had her home and was looking for new writing work. And at that time, things were pretty good financially.
Okay. Were you familiar with the product she put out called Easy Street?
Oh, sure.
Did Susan make some money on that?
Yes, she did.
Was that before or after you?
That was before. That was before.
Would you please wait until the question's finished before you give your answer? And that's so our court reporter can take it down reliably. You may continue.
Thank you. Did that bring her some substantial assets, Easy Street?
If I remember correctly, I believe that's what she told me.
What type of money are we talking?
I really don't.
Okay. Did you ever marry Susan?
No.
So would you say that at least when you were living with her, after you met her, during that 2-year period, Susan was doing fairly well financially?
This is
Okay. And what was her career like?
well, she was between writing assignments, you might say. We were going on pitch meetings, she was submitting things, we were working on different projects,
Okay.
looking to produce it.
What about yourself? What was going on in your career at that time when you met Susan?
Well, I was financially pretty secure at that time, and I was just looking to produce a show, looking for something to get involved with.
Did you think that Susan might be able to help you in that process?
Yeah. Certainly, we were working together, so whatever connections we had, we explored them together. She had some, I had some, it was a working partnership.
Okay. Was Susan generous financially towards your children?
Oh, yes. I mean, she didn't have to be. I was taking care of my children, but I mean, so certainly available to them, yeah.
Well, when you say you were taking care of your children, you all were living together, right?
That's right.
Were you living together as a family?
Basically.
Well, was it just you taking care of the children, or did she play some part in raising your children while you were there?
Well, she became the surrogate mother for them, and she bonded with them, which I was very happy about. I was a single father,
Yes.
so that for me to get involved with any woman, it would have to be someone who could really relate to the children. And that was one of the big attractions Okay. So was she then generous while you were living with her towards your children?
Well, generous emotionally, absolutely. She was totally committed mother to them. And financially, no, wasn't she? You know, she probably spent some on them, but that was not part of our arrangement.
Okay. So at least at that point in time, you would not characterize her as being financially generous towards your children?
Well, the phrase financially generous, I would call her very generous in all these things.
Okay. Did any of the scripts that you and Susan worked on together sell?
Yes, but not at that time. Later on, we started this project, the History of Las Vegas, which eventually did get produced. But not at that time, it was years later.
How close towards Sarah and Lynda did Susan become?
Well, she became she became a surrogate mother for them and was quite close to them.
Did she have a legal responsibility to do so?
No, there was no legal obligation. We were not legally married, and she had no obligation of any sort.
Did she treat them as her own children?
As well.
Like her own?
Yes, I would say so, yes.
Okay. Eventually, did you move away from Los Angeles?
No, we started working in New York. I started working in New York on a show that I hoped to take to Broadway at the time. And so I started going back and forth, you know. I had a place in New York, but I was, traveling back and forth between Los Angeles and New York. The children stayed with her in LA at the home.
And how old were they at that time?
Let's see. 10, 12, 13, 14, in that range during the 80s. That's what they would have been.
For what period of time would you be gone to New York? You're saying this is why you're working on some Broadway project?
Right.
We'll talk about that project in a little bit. I want to talk about the children. How often were you gone during those periods of time?
It was very. At first, when we first started working in the New York project, not long. I would go for a day, a week, and then I got an apartment there, and this is much later now. This goes into the late 80s.
Okay.
88, 89, 90, early 90. I got an apartment there and started spending most of my time there, but I would still come back.
Okay. And all these times that you were gone to New York, where did the children stay?
They stayed with her in Los Angeles.
Did she seem okay with that?
Absolutely.
Did she ever complain to you about that?
No.
In fact, did she welcome them?
She did.
Did she care for their emotional needs while you were away?
Certainly, to my knowledge and to their responses to her, I would say yes.
Did she care for the financial needs while you were gone?
No, I was taking care of that. Right.
Over time, how close of a bond would you say it was that Susan developed with your children?
Well, as I said, she became their surrogate mother. I think they came to think of her as their mother. And to this day, I think they still do.
I want to talk about this project that you were discussing. What was it called?
The Dreyfus Affair was the project we were working on. It was called Dreyfus.
Okay. And describe this.
Well, it was a musical version of the story of the Alfred Dreyfus case, which took place in France at the end of the 18th century, excuse me, 19th century.
Whose idea was this project?
It was my idea. Yeah.
What, if anything, was Susan's involvement in it?
Well, she connected me up with some people in New York that were really helpful in getting it produced. I threw it for one. And then she helped in many ways. We would talk about everything we wrote together. So.
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't know the name of the person who you connected with. You mentioned someone.
Cy Feuer was a well-established producer in New York. It was through her auspices that I met him, and we started producing the show together.
That's spelled F-E-U-E-R.
How do you spell the first name? Cy, S-C-Y? Cyrus. I don't think it was S.I. I think it's, I'm not sure how it's spelled. C.Y. I think.
Does about 1991 sound around the approximate time period where this was going on?
Yes.
So Susan provided kind of a main connection for you to get into Broadway?
Well, I wouldn't say you get into Broadway, but she made the connection to Cy Feuer, who became my partner in producing this. He ended up directing, and I produced it, but we also kind of worked on producing it.
Would you say that Susan was kind of the main person who connected you to him?
To him, yes.
Okay. Did you say who wrote it?
It was written by Cy's son. He wrote the music, and the book was written by, her name escapes me now.
What kind of financial commitment was made towards this Dreyfus Affair Broadway project?
Well, I made a considerable financial commitment to it.
Okay, how much?
Gosh, yeah. Honestly, this was a long time ago.
Have you produced any other Broadway shows?
No.
Was this your first Broadway show?
It was.
Was this, would you say, your first major production?
Well, I've been involved in other major productions, but I mean,
Prior to that?
not for Broadway. Because for Broadway, this was the major production.
So your first major Broadway production, do you recall approximately how much you personally staked in it?
I don't, but it was in, and I'm guessing, I probably put up $20,000 or $30,000, something like that. And we had an investor that put up another $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, and we had some other people that came in as well.
When I first asked you to have the commitment, what the financial commitment was, you said you made a big financial commitment. Who else made financial commitment?
Well, as I just said, it was myself. There was a lady invested quite a bit in it, and there were some other investors that came in as well. And Cy Feuer, although he didn't put up any money, put up his time and effort. He didn't charge anything. We partnered up on it. So.
What about Susan? You didn't mention
She
Susan.
did not put up any money into this.
Susan didn't put up any money to the Dreyfus Affair?
Nothing.
Did Susan put any of her money from Easy Street that she had earned towards your Dreyfus Affair project?
Nothing.
Did Susan, are you saying Susan didn't contribute a dime to this project?
That is correct. But that doesn't mean she wasn't involved, but she didn't invest any dollars.
What about Robert Durst? Did he commit any money to this project?
No.
Do you recall speaking with Mr. Lewin?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall telling Mr. Lewin that Mr. Durst, you believe, put $20,000 to $25,000 into this project through Susan?
I don't recall saying that, and I don't recall that. No, not to my recollection at this moment.
Okay. Were any mortgages taken on any of Susan's home to help finance this project?
No.
Never took a mortgage off the Brentwood home?
Well, she took out a mortgage on that property, but it had nothing to do with this project at all.
Okay. Did the project move forward?
Well, we got as far as previews, so, that was pretty far. I was kind of thrilled with the results, and unfortunately, we didn't actually, get to run the show on Broadway. But it was a wonderful journey, and I remember with great fondness.
You remember with great fondness. It was a wonderful journey for yourself, you're saying.
Yes, right.
Do you think it was a wonderful journey for Susan?
Well, Susan was in LA working on other projects. This was not a major commitment. In other words, this question that you asked, would you ask me that again, if you would, please? Thank you, so I can clearly understand what you're asking.
From your perspective, was this project a wonderful journey for Susan Berman?
From my perspective, this project was a secondary project for Susan. She had connected me with Cy. We had gone ahead to produce the show. I was in touch with her as to what was going on, but this was not a major effort, concern, or involvement from her.
Do you believe that this project in any way contributed to Susan Berman's financial decline?
No, I do not.
Do you believe that this project in any way contributed to Susan Berman's emotional decline?
I do not.
How do you feel about being here today?
Well, this wasn't my first choice.
That's probably putting it mildly, right?
Well, you know, when I was contacted in regard to this, and I told Mr. Lewin when he came to interview me initially that it was not something I wanted to do, because of the publicity involved and all of that, and that has been my major concern.
Is it a fair statement that being here to testify is the last thing you want to do?
I think last might be a bit extreme, but it certainly is, you know.
Would you say you have zero interest in being here today?
I would say that is not true. I do not have zero interest in it.
Would you say you have zero interest in being involved in this case?
The way you state that, I think you give the wrong impression as to my feeling about this. I do not have zero interest in being here. I do not have zero interest in being in this case.
Okay. Do you remember when Mr. Lewin and detectives knocked on your door? Do you remember that?
I sure do, sure.
Do you remember what your first response was?
I thought something had happened to my son, or I thought maybe they were coming for some other reason. It was very alarming at first, actually.
Do you remember what your first response was with respect to how involved you wanted to be?
Well, my first response was I did not want to be involved. I made that very clear. I said, this is not something I want to do because I don't want to be exposed to all the publicity. You know, that was my major concern. It had nothing to do with coming forth with whatever I happen to know or not know.
So people may mark this portion of the transcript as people's third part?
Yes.
Oh, let me ask you, and this is not an impression I get, I'm wrong. It sounds like you would like your involvement in this case to be even less than it is so far.
Oh, categorically, yes.
Okay, I have zero interest in being involved in this.
All right, well,
You have zero interest in being here, correct? Is that true?
at this stage, no, that is not.
Okay. When Mr. Lewin knocked on the door, one of the first things you said was, I have nothing really to say. I don't know anything. Didn't you?
That's true.
When Mr. Lewin asked for your date of birth in the beginning of the interview, your main concern was whether you needed a lawyer and you were under suspicion of some sort. Was it
That
that?
is true.
We'll be marking the transcript 35A.
Thank you. Thank you.
The clip will be 35.
Your concern that this case is going to be like a circus, kind of like OJ, basically what you said, right?
Well, that was a concern, yes.
Okay. And you don't want to have any involvement in that, is that right?
Well, no, I would hope not to be in a circus of that sort. That is true.
Well, did you tell Mr. Lewin you don't want to go on national TV in this freaking circus?
I don't know if those were the exact words I used, but certainly that was my point of view. I did not want to be involved with this if I could avoid it, yes.
Okay. And you continue to not want to be involved, correct?
Not at this stage. I am here willingly, voluntarily, and happy to share what I know.
Okay. When you were being interviewed by Mr. Lewin, as he was asking you questions, what was going on in your mind? Were you doing your best to answer honestly and truthfully?
Honestly, yes, but I was doing my best to say as little as possible.
Okay. I want to I want to play it, but People's 36, Your Honor?
Yes. 36A? 36, 36A.
You're talking to me like I'm being uncooperative. No, what do you want me to say? No, Paul. I don't think you're uncooperative at all. Here's what I do think. Okay, I will make this okay. All right. I think you are a great guy, too. And I think that, as you're asking these questions, I think a part of you is saying to yourself, depending on how I answer this, I might put myself in that court. Oh, I think you're 1,000% correct. But I have zero interest in going to court.
That's right. Exactly right. So, Miss Susan Berman was fairly close to you. Is that right?
That's right.
Susan Berman raised your children, basically. Is that right?
That's right. Not entirely, but at that point in your life, yes.
Would you agree that the preteen years are some of the most formative years in a child's life?
Absolutely.
Would you agree that in the preteen years, children need their parents present, a loving support present with them?
I agree.
Susan Berman was that person for your children in those preteen years, was she not?
A preteen, no. She came in when they were just hitting teenagehood.
All right. Would you agree that that period in their life is extremely important to have a positive, strong role model for them?
Absolutely.
Would you agree that Susan Berman was that strong role model for them?
She was indeed.
Okay. Susan Berman, are you grateful for what she did for your children?
I absolutely am.
You understand she was murdered, brutally shot in the head in her home, right?
Of course.
You understand that you might have information that might assist bring justice to the person who might have killed her. Is that right?
That I would not say, but I am here because of something she did say.
Okay. And so then I'm sure then you were happy to speak with the police when they came to you to ask you what you knew.
Well, absolutely.
Okay.
We called the last one 36, we'll add 36A.
Yes, 36A.
Your concern for coming to court, you testified, was having to be on national TV, basically. Is that right?
My concern was that in a trial of this sort, which is going to get national publicity, that my name and my family would be dragged through the national press in the process of a murder trial. That is not something I would volunteer to be involved with.
Okay.
That's what I was expressing.
Okay. And consistent with that, the last thing you wanted to do was provide information that would result in you coming to court.
If I could avoid that and not have to come to court, yes.
Okay. When your interview with Mr. Lewin was over, did you ask him to not bring you into it?
The last thing I said was, I'm begging you, please don't call me. I beg you, don't call me. That's what I said to him. And I said it jokingly, but I was also serious. I was hoping that I would not be called.
Did you tell them that if he subpoenaed you, you'd have to get a lawyer and try to fight it?
I did not say that. I just said, I didn't say anything about that as far as I know.
Can you play PKO 35, please? People's 36, Your Honor, please.
Okay, 36, 36, right.
37.
37.
I mean, I haven't gotten that.
There's not a question.
Just wait for the questions.
But I'll tell you this, if you decide to call me, I will then have to get an attorney. Okay. And try not to go.
Did you say that?
That was my attitude at that moment in time.
Okay.
Yes.
And did you say, if you do get me on the stand, I'm going to be completely general. I'm telling you right now.
I'm not going to say I didn't say that because you're going to play it back for me.
Well, I want to know if you said it.
I don't recall saying.
Can you say PKO 21, Memorex, People's 38?
All right, 38.
You know, the surface, this is going to... I'm going to make a law, yes, that's not an issue for you, correct? So I know you don't want to be in this case, but I'm trying to be honest with you, as you're looking nice. I told you what I can do. If I am going to be completely general.
Did you say that?
Evidently, I said that.
And that's how you felt?
At that moment, yeah, that's how I felt.
Okay.
Eventually, it was 12:01 p.m. Maybe a recess? Do not skip.
Once again, we are in sync with the recording because it is approaching 12 o'clock. It's time for our recess. Do not talk about the case or about any of the people or any subject involved in it with anyone, including the other jurors. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. And we'll see you at 1:30 for our short session, 1 more hour today.